in our cheap suits. He didn't shake our hands or give us a hug, but instead pretended to punch Tommy in the stomach and messed up my hair. My mom was next on the receiving line. The minute I saw her, I grabbed her around the waist, squeezing her as hard as I could, and started crying. I don't know why that happened, but I couldn't control it. She tried to tell me everything's okay, but she couldn't because she was crying too, and was probably having trouble speaking because I was squeezing her so hard. That's when Tommy decided to be a dick and just walked out of the funeral home, not even saying anything to our mom or Gilligan. I wanted to kill him. After Mom wiped the tears from my face and I gave Gilligan a hug, I walked through the crowd looking for Tommy, and I was getting so mad that I said to myself, when I find him, I'm not going to say anything to him. I'm just going to walk up to him and punch him in his mean face. Then I saw him. He was sitting in a chair in the middle of the back row of the funeral home. He was stuck between two old biddies in black who were saying their rosaries, and he was crying, like really crying, with a red face and his whole body heaving up and down. After the wake, we all walked across the street to a bar, and everyone was in a much better mood. Even my mom was smiling and laughing as she told everyone about Pop taking her to the bars on 3rd Avenue, while he had his pints and sang his songs, so he did. And she would sit on the bar and wait for him to finish his antics, and throw her onto his shoulders so they could head uptown to the next bar. Everyone laughed and toasted and shouted Pop's name. They drank their drinks and told more stories. The one sole surviving Irish musician from Pop's kitchen sing-alongs, Brady, the fiddle player, raised his glass and said, "Let this be for the soul of Pop McSweeney." Everyone raised their glass. "May it be received," they responded before they drank. Gilligan told everyone that she thought Pop must have known the Lord would be calling for him soon. "Wouldn't you know, when I went to look for a suit to be buried in, I couldn't find it anywhere until I closed the bedroom door, and there it was on the hook. And it had just come from the dry cleaners a few days earlier," Gilligan said. "Mind you, this is a suit he hadn't worn in 20 years, and why would a man get the urge to send a suit that he hadn't worn in 20 years to the dry cleaner unless the Lord had given him a sign and touched his shoulder and whispered in his ear that the suit was in need of a press? Because if you're going to be meeting our Savior, you can't be wearing a wrinkled suit." There was silence after she told that story, and all of Pop's friends and family nodded. My Uncle Mark then turned to me and asked if I'd like to say a few words or tell a story. I shook my head. "Come on, kid. If you can't tell a halfway entertaining story about one of the funniest men you'll ever meet, you got no right to stand at this bar or be a part of this family." I looked to my dad, and he shrugged. "Your Uncle Mark is right. Tell us one thing you remember about your grandfather." I couldn't believe my dad was doing this to me. I didn't know most of these people, and I wasn't even supposed to be allowed to be in the bar, but I had no choice. "Okay," I said. "There was this one story Pop told me that he thought was so funny he told it to me a bunch of times. He said the night my dad proposed to my mom, he and my mom went out to celebrate, and they were sitting in a booth at a bar and my mom was crying. Uncle Mike jumped in. "She's always been given to the tears, hasn't she?" The people that knew her well all nodded. I said, "But this time she was crying because she was happy. But then somebody told you guys, her brothers, that they saw your sister in the bar down the street crying. So you two ran in there and didn't ask any questions. You grabbed my dad and dragged him outside and were about to beat him up when my mom ran outside screaming at you to stop. And she had to show you the ring to prove that she was crying happy tears and not sad tears. And then all four of you walked up the block to the apartment to wake up Pop and tell him the good news, but he was out drinking. So you had to go to every bar in the Bronx to find him, and when you finally did, he looked at the engagement ring my dad gave my mom, and he just shook his head and said, 'Aye, that won't do, so it won't.' And you all walked back up the concourse to the apartment, and Pop took out Grandma's old engagement ring and gave that to my dad, even though it wasn't as nice as the ring my dad got for my mom because Pop got Grandma that ring when they still lived in Ireland and were really poor. And then my dad had to re-propose in front of all of you in the kitchen, and that's it. That's all I remember." I didn't get any laughs because it's not really a funny story, but I was told I was allowed to stick around. My mom then had to show everybody the ring, and as she did, the smile from their wedding album returned to her face. Chapter 2. So, I was sitting on my bed one night, looking at the big maple tree outside my window.